Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support over the years. It is greatly appreciated. Welcome back to the channel. We are making our way through the Seeker cards in the Feast for Hemlock Vale Investigator expansion. We survived our encounter with the Ravenous Myconid. It was touch and go there for a moment, but we threw enough curse tokens at it to keep it at bay for the time being. Hopefully in this match of cards we will be awarding fewer curse tokens. We are going to start off with Control Variable. It's a 1-cost event within Willpower and Intellect skill icon, Insight, Science, and Curse trait. Fast. Play after an Investigator reveals a curse token during a skill test at your location. Discover 1 clue at your location. Now, I haven't had a chance to test the new cursed tech in the box, but this is one way to grab extra tokens if you are drawing those curse tokens.
Yeah, I think that all those curse tokens which were at the Myconid in the last video are really going to come in helpful this time.
I just think of the same thing.
So this is working a hunch. -1 resource cost, and at the additional requirement of needing a curse token. Now, there's an additional small, I would say, nerf. I really like having 2 intellect icons on working a hunch. Sometimes it's just nice to be able to commit that. This having 2 different icons, I would argue, is slightly worse, but I don't think it's like meaningfully different. The thing that I personally find is if I really want to play Working a Hunch, and if I'm honest, I should probably play more Working a Hunch because it's a really strong card, but it's also a little bit of a boring card, so I don't always put it in my decks. I don't think that this is the card for Seekers, but one of the things that I think is really interesting here is that because it is curse traded, that opens up access to a number of investigators that don't get access to Working a Hunch, and also typically for who spending fewer resources to get clues is actually a pretty favorable trade. I'm thinking specifically Parallel Jim, Kohaku, and to a lesser extent Parallel Wendy. The thing is that this is a cursed card hiding as a Seeker card, which I also like that Seeker getting more curse payoffs because in the Innsmouth Conspiracy they were supposed to be the curse faction that never ended up really materializing. This is a reasonable effort, even though I still think that this is a card that cares about curse a hell lot more than it is a card that cares about being a Seeker. So
I like this card actually. It feels like another brand of like Working a Hunch, but it's not like how to describe it. It's not like super powerful. It's just a 1 resource discount. So I'm looking at it as like Working a Hunch number 3 and number 4. Okay, so if you're playing a deck that kind of like puts curses in the bag to draw more cards, for example, like what was that one? What's the card from
Deep Knowledge.
Yeah, there you go. Like you play Deep Knowledge, you're doing that already. So okay, you're playing a curse team, and then so it's just like you get a little payoff whenever a curse comes up. Because unlike Working a Hunch, you can't control when this triggers. So this, it's not like Working a Hunch where you can just like save it for like when you need it, when you need that action compression. This one is just it's reactive. You have to like wait for someone to draw a curse at your location, by the way. So it's not anybody. Yeah, I like this. And so it's like Working a Hunch number 3 and 4, and it is, if you're playing curse, sounds good. If you're not playing curse, sounds terrible.
One tiny detail that easy to miss. This is also potentially a Working Hunch you can play outside of your own turn, because Working Hunch is played during your own turn. I struggle to imagine a situation where that is super relevant, but it is worth remembering that one of the things that Carson told me or proved to me last cycle is that being able to break the turn order and do things out of order can sometimes make a difference. So I don't know how big that impacts your evaluation of this card, but
But it could lead to some funny situations where you are changing the number of clues on the location mid-test. There might be some really specific interactions. Discovering a clue during someone else's test. Like let's say you're playing Trish. You might be able to evade something while someone else is in the middle of taking their test. Do they evade the thing and then you evade it for them while they're evading?
Or they're fighting and they start pulling a bunch of curses and you're like, uh-oh, that retaliate is going to trigger. Let me grab a clue, evade it, now retaliate's turned off.
And then of course you control them. Like let's say they're in the middle of fighting an aloof enemy and then you evade it for them and then they can't fight it anymore because you're trolling them.
I think the fight would still go through in that case, but if they need a second...
The first one. But the second one, you're like, gotcha. Yeah,
gotcha. If you were to do this, I'm not playing Arkham with you anymore.
I mean, I do like the fact that if you're playing a curse deck, I mean, you're putting -2s in the bag, so there is that tendency you're going to probably fail more skill checks, but this gives you a clue without having to make a skill test. So you're sort of avoiding the curse problem with it. You know, I think if you're playing a curse deck, this is one of the cards you're definitely going to be considering in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love how this thing is just like, it's another example of like the new Seeker, where it's like the cards are grounded and, you know, a little more nuanced and interesting. And what's really ironic is this curse card gets a bless from me.
This curse card also gets a bless from me because that's where it goes. Yeah, it's
where it goes.
Yeah. It's a curse. Like, I think with the exception of Kohaku, who can guarantee that he pulls a curse token once per round, you just need to be in a curse. So here's the thing. You're either in a curse team, in which case this is going to fire basically whenever, or you're playing specifically an investigator who can reliably generate and trigger their own curse tokens, which your name is Kohaku.
You get a reward for doing that, like for doing your thing. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, not having played the new curse tech, it's difficult for me to judge, so I will also end up on a blessed token for this one. If you're playing a cursed investigator or have some way of reliably drawing a curse token, and you need a clue at a high shroud location, which one is it? Favor the Moon, I think.
Favor the Moon, or the new Book of Living Myths, which is the signature for Kohaku, or all of McBride if you're so inclined.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, then you're having fun and you get a reward for it. Yeah, I like this card.
Blessed tokens all around for control variable. Wow. The next card is Testing Sprint. It is a 1-cost event with a willpower, intellect, and agility skill icon, insight, and double trait. As an additional cost to play Testing Sprint, spend an action, as is the case with all the double cards. Investigate. One at a time, investigate your location and each connecting location once, each in ascending order of shroud, until you either fail to investigate or successfully investigate each eligible location. So when I read this card, I immediately thought of that first scenario in the Dream Eaters, where you could set at the path and theoretically just investigate all of the locations, as long as they were revealed. This is kind of, as a solo player, this one's kind of tricky to play because I tend to like go to a location, investigate, go to the next location, investigate. But there are circumstances, like I think the other one I was thinking about was in The Secret Name, where you end up with all those locations that are attached to the house. And sometimes you don't have the ability to sort of sit there and investigate those locations. You could reveal a whole bunch of them and then fire this off.
So it's funny you say the first time you read this, you were thinking of certain applications. The first time I read this, my eyes kind of crossed and I went, what is this supposed to do? Because the wording is not the most easy to parse, shall we say. But I think the problem with this card, once I've actually like tried it, is in order for this card to justify its existence, you need to be investigating a lot, and you really can't afford to fail. Because let me hit you with some math. For 2 actions, which this is a double, I can investigate twice. I am a seeker. I am okay just investigating twice. Also, it's worth noting that unlike the microscope that we talked about a few videos ago, which compresses all these investigates into a single test, you're taking a skill test for every different test. So if you autofill at any point, that just breaks this streak. If I'm only investigating 2 locations, then I've spent a card and a resource to do nothing. If I'm investigating 3 different locations, then I am spending a card and a resource to investigate a single time, assuming that I pass all 3 of the tests. Mm-hmm. Why don't I just play Working a Hunch? Moving around isn't necessarily a big problem, and having to open up all these different locations generally is, because the thing you described is definitely a problem in solo, where opening up locations, not clearing them, and then moving on is not really a play pattern, but it's not really a play pattern in higher player counts either. Usually you clear them out. In Seeker, you have Ursula, you have Monterey Jack, who maybe are the exception, but even then I'm like, So for this thing to work, I really want to investigate 4 times. And there are just not that many situations in the game where you can investigate 4 times with this. And again, Working a Hunch is a card that I should probably be putting in more decks, and this is not beating Working a Hunch a lot of the time for me. However, there is one person who does maybe get this card a lot of the time. Can you guess?
Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. That guy's forbidden, by the way.
Oh, Luke has been forbidden on this channel? Sorry.
Well, for me at least.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. But yes, it is Luke Robinson. When you are in his gatebox pocket dimension, you are collected to every revealed location, and so it is a lot easier to set up the required number of locations. But also, I find it kind of amusing that you have to investigate your one shroud location pocket dimension with no clues in it, probably before you do anything else. And I look forward to people auto-failing that test and then not getting anything for their double action and research and card. There is one other thing about this card. It's an insight. I talked about insights being a thing that Seekers can combo with a little bit. Specifically, if you have any effect that can make this fast, you do still, I think, have to spend an action. So you go from a double to a single, which...
Oh, because the additional cost. It's an additional cost, not the action cost.
Yeah. It's even at that point, I'm like, I don't know, I can just play Burning the Midnight Oil fast instead of spending an action. And I find effects that require you to pass, like in general, anything that's reliant on a skill test, autofills or high tokens just can ruin your day. And this requires you to successively pass the test until you get, and they get more important with each test. So if you fail an early one just to a random autofail, it's just like, why? So I don't like this card. I don't like the design of this card either.
So from my point of view, it feels so balanced and in theme with like the new Seeker. That's like, okay, so you're running around and like you can use this to like, let's just say you use to like get 3 investigates instead of 2. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, it's so like brought down to reality that like it makes me like it more. I gotta admit. But again, this is another one of those cards, and honestly, Arkham Horror has quite a few of these, where it seems like it's designed for the ideal, where I'm investigating 5 locations. Whee! It seems like it's designed for that and not for the reality of I am next to 2 locations and one of them has no clues left. So great. Yeah, Arkham has a lot of these, and this is another one of those.
To be fair, that's not necessarily bad design. That's not necessarily bad design.
We can debate that, but it's a design. Yeah. I like to. I'm thinking of this. I want to compare this to the Pocket Telescope, to be honest, because I feel like it does a similar effect to the Pocket Telescope, where it's like you could investigate remotely or something like that. That's what it's given you. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you talking about Pocket Telescope, and I will raise you Seeking Answers, level 0.
I was gonna mention that. I was gonna mention Seeking Answers. Yeah. Yeah,
that's
where I was going.
A lot fairer as a comparison, but even then, I don't necessarily think that this beats a card that we've had for most of the lifespan of the game, and has been considered not good for most of the lifespan of the game. So, this card's struggling.
There's one thought I have, though. Are there any ways to leverage the fact that you could be making like a lot of skill tests?
Okay, if you want me to actually answer this question, it's written in the stars deduction or perception level 2. Written in the stars is a event from Edge of the Earth, which you discard the top card of your deck, and then you commit it to every test you make that turn. So if you want to do that, go ahead. I don't like when Arkham gets that combo-y, because this card is, in my mind, pretty unplayable without that kind of combo.
Oh, but it's just us trying. We're trying.
Yeah, no, fair enough. We just spent an entire video talking about how we don't like how secret cards get too broken, and I don't know. I don't want to accidentally break this card because turns out that committing deduction level 2 to every one of these investigates is kind of good. The other thing that I will actually say, because I talked about like the high mobility seekers that can open up a bunch of locations, there are also clue dropping seekers now, right? Scarlet Keys gave us clue dropping as an archetype, and the fact that you could potentially guarantee that a couple of these locations have clues on them just by putting them there yourself, and you get some sort of value from that. Yeah, that's a thing.
How would we rate this one?
You first.
I can see situations where you could use this, but the fact that you need to like investigate so many locations really kills this one for me. You need at least 2 to come, for the double, and then you haven't really gained anything at that point still, so you've got to go to 3 or 4. And I can think of situations where they're, the 2 I mentioned, like the Secret Name and the beginning of Dream Eaters, but those types of situations just don't show up enough, I think, to warrant putting this in your deck. Like I just use the test, like, I draw this up in my opening hand. Am I happy to see it? No, because it won't do anything. at the start of the game. It's not going to help me get clues. It's not going to jumpstart my game. Okay, so I'm say turn 6, I draw this card. Am I happy to see it? Probably not, because I've cleared the locations of clues at this point, and I'm not going to be able to generate enough value out of it to make the double worthwhile. And the icons aren't particularly inspiring either, so am I giving this an auto fail?
I am, because even though I like the new Seeker, and I wish that the whole Seeker from day one was more like this, where it was all about you don't brute force the game, you have to mold the game or whatever. You got to work the game. But in the game we have now, I'm giving this an auto fail. So you have permission.
I want to give this a curse, in that I want them to debut this to be. Okay, so I have a fun idea for how you could debut this card to be more interesting, which is that every time you succeed a test, you get a +1 on all the subsequent ones, which would actually be super neat. I don't know if there's space on the card to actually, like the physical card to write that. So, but no, it's an auto fail. I'll join you at auto fail. There's a card coming up that's way more interesting than this that also has shockingly similar traits. So let's talk about that one instead.
Let's look at Thorough Inquiry. It is a 2-cost event with an Intellect, Agility, and Wild skill icon, Insight, and double trait. As an additional cost to play Thorough Inquiry, spend an action. Investigators at your location draw a combined total of 5 cards. You decide how many cards each investigator draws. Now, I did put this card in my Kate deck. I never ended up playing it. I did have one situation where I would have liked to have played it for the 5 cards, but unfortunately I did not have 2 actions to do it, and my hand, I don't remember how many cards I had in my hand, but then between Empirical Hypothesis and something else, I think my hand size managed to... I think I played like a lab assistant or something like that, so suddenly my hand was flush with cards, and I think I ended up committing these to skill tests. But the ability to draw 5 cards and then distribute said cards as you wish seems pretty good to me.
I like this card.
I do want to point out it has an intellect, intellect, agility, and wild icon, so it's actually already better than the previous cards just on that basis. So I have a thesis on this card. There's a similar one in Rogue that gets you resources. These cards are bad for the faction that they are in. If you are playing a Seeker. I'm going to over this. If you are a Seeker, then this is not a great way to get your card draw, because you're going to have better ways to get your card draw. But if you are either handing these out to other players, or if you are a off-class investigator who gets a limited number of slots, this is a great way to compress a whole bunch of, in this case, card draw into a single card. So jumping over to the Survivor one, which I think gives you a bunch of evades, I put that into a Tony deck, Survivor Tony, and suddenly I had this one card that I just need to evade a whole bunch of enemies. Here we go. And likewise, I can imagine if you're playing Mary, the Mystic that gets 5 Seeker cards, I don't think there are a lot of good Seeker includes that will just get you a burst of card draw, and this could get you a ton. And obviously, I think the best user for this is Carson. Carson already wants to give his actions to other players, and just going, here, have 5 cards is a great way for Carson to help the team. So I think that the numbers, if you start doing the numbers, this is slightly better than Preposterous Sketches at the cost of an additional action. So that's pretty even. But if you compare it to Deep Knowledge, which is a very similar card, that's kind of the problem with it. It's coming in the curse box with comparing to the level 0 curse card from the previous curse cycle. That one's a lot better, unless you are going for that, no, I need to draw a lot of cards, or my team needs to draw a lot of cards. And one thing to point out there is that giving one person 5 cards can make all the difference. Your Guardian hasn't drawn their weapon and it's just panic mode. I've had situations like that where it's just no, I don't care anymore what's in your hand. Get 5 cards, find the one thing you need, we need to get out of here, kind of thing.
Oh, I like this thing because I like when you have the extra it's costly in that it costs 2 actions, but I like it when you can compact a lot of actions into one card. And you it's one of those it's the option to pay a lot, get a lot. And I like this thing. And the icons are good.
It doesn't surprise me at all that this is not a good card in solo. In solo, you want a smaller card where you pay less and you get a couple fewer cards. That makes a lot more sense to me.
If I had needed the cards, I would have taken the time to play it. It's just, as it turned out, my hand was already good, and I was playing Dunwich, where Beyond the Veil's a threat. So in that game, I ended up with 6 cards in my deck, and Beyond the Veil hadn't shown its face yet. So I had to take this turn where I had to draw a bunch of cards. I wish I'd had this card in my hand, actually. It would have made things a lot easier, because then I would have been able to draw through my deck, recycle my deck, so then if I did happen to draw Beyond the Veil later, I would have had a full deck to work with. But I don't think I had this card in my hand at the time, which would have so I had to do it the hard way, which was kind of annoying, but it all worked out in the end. So I'm going to land on a +1 for this one.
I am as well, because as I expressed earlier, I like when a single card is like pay a lot, get a lot, and this does it. But I also like how it's pay a lot, but not in resources. So what that means is you're rarely like out of resources and unable to do this. You have actions. You get 3 actions every round. So I like this card. I'm also going to go with +1. I like it. It's high impact.
Yeah, I'm okay with +1. Oh, and my last thought, which is the same or similar thought to had before. It's an insight. You can shenanigans things with insights. It's just something to point out that all the secret cards have insight has been a thing for most of this game existence, but we actually have like insight payoff cards now. Even if you just crafty to turn this to basically make this cost 0, that's already like a pretty good deal, right? Like,
do you know what needed thorough inquiry? The Myconid.
Yeah, I was
and I think that I think the flavor text on this card is particularly relevant to the Myconid. The truth is often hidden in plain sight.
Just scroll up.
The card is busted. It's visible to all. The final card in this batch is this is a pretty interesting card. I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but it is another enemy management option in Seeker, and they don't have a great deal of those at level 0. This is Throw the Book at Them. 1-cost event with a intellect and combat skill icon, Gambit, and improvised. Fight, choose a tome asset you control. You get +X combat for this attack, where X is that asset's printed cost. If you succeed, you may either automatically evade the attacked enemy, or after the attack ends, you may resolve the action or free triggered ability on the chosen asset, ignoring its action cost, if any. So I was looking at this card in Daisy, of course, because Daisy's all about the tomes. So if you're playing the old Daisy with the old Book of Lore, the old Book of Lore costs 3. I think this is actually one of the most expensive tomes in the game, to be honest. So you get +3 combat, and then you could either, if you succeed, then which I think puts Daisy, 4 or 5?
5.
5? Which is pretty good against most run-of-the-mill enemies. So then you can either automatically evade it and deal a damage, or then you could trigger the old Book of Lore.
You know what you have to say about this card is like, this is one of those, and they come up every once in a while, where it's like, so it doesn't belong in this set, because it doesn't belong with Kate. And it's like, somebody had an idea, and then they got a name, and then they just struggled, it seems, to like design a card around it. And I feel like this card is like in its design is like the exact opposite of thorough inquiry. This one has a lot of words, and it doesn't really do very much.
No, you see, it does belong in this set because, there's an investigator in this cycle that specifically gets to take improvised cards.
Oh, I didn't even. I thought.
Look at Wilson decks.
I'm just looking at the tome. It's like. Wait, it's just.
You're not wrong, because Wilson can't take tome, so it's not a card for him. Which is again only further reinforcing the card. This is weird. Yeah. I like it. We were talking about this is a Seeker enemy management solution. I would like more Seeker enemy solutions to look like this. And less
that's true.
The Myconid.
Less like Strange Solution or the Myconid or anything like that. Yeah,
exactly.
It looks fun. Yeah, it looks fun. In the end, I mean, I feel like it's in the wrong set, but I think this should be in it should have been like a starter deck, for example, would have been kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, that would be neat.
Yeah, if it was in one of the starter decks, that'd be interesting because this feels like appropriate for your basic core Daisy Seeker. So and it gives them and I like how it lets you evade. That's kind of cool. So I'm imagining like your core Daisy, and if you just added this thing, it's like, oh, that's cool. I can use my old book of lore, and I can fight at 5, and I can evade. Sounds fun. I'll just do that without like devouring the entire enemy or anything like that. Yeah, so I find this card both very like weird design wise, but also I'm kind of glad it's in the game, but it's in the totally wrong set. So
Okay,
yeah,
well,
there's a lot of thoughts there. I had a lot of
I'm
thoughts.
gonna make this worse for you. I kind of agree with you that it feels a bit odd in this set, but that happens sometimes. Sometimes cards just end up in card files. That's okay. Like I don't hold, especially because this is an LCG and like you're kind of expected to keep collecting if that's the kind of game you want to have. This is gonna show up and go, oh hey, I haven't built a Daisy deck, a Harvey deck, whatever in a while. Let me put this in and try it out. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. Not every card in a set has to be 100% cohesive with the rest of the cards. It's fun if there's a little bit of cross-pollination sometimes. The thing that really gets me, first of all, I am throwing the book at them, but I don't discard the book. So that's the part where I'm a little confused, and maybe that's for balance reasons. That's probably better. But like,
do you know it's an idiom. It's an American idiom.
I mean, I know it's an idiom, but
okay.
You're telling me that you hit the spider, which, by the way, I don't like big spiders. So this art that's on my screen right now, I'm not having a great time. But you're telling me that I hit the big spider with my old book of lore, and the spine of the spider, the spine of the book is going to hold up after that. Like, it's a really good book. Let's just put it that way.
I think I like the art. I like the art in this. It's fun. It's cool.
It's funny.
But I've got some alt art for you already. It's from the opening scene of John Wick 3 when he kills a guy with a book.
With a book. Yeah, I've seen that movie. Yeah. It's great.
There you go.
In that case, I believe he just hits him with it. But yeah, the other thing that actually is kind of confusing. So automatic evade, perfect. Why does this let you resolve a free triggered ability on the chosen asset? It doesn't let you ignore the other costs of the ability. It only ignores the action cost. But you can already use free triggered abilities whenever you want. So why is that wording there? That's just yeah.
It seems like it's one of those things where it seems like it was given too many words.
Yeah,
it's because someone thought that, oh, if it's only evades, oh, my players are gonna feel like they wasted it because they killed the enemy, and I'm like, whatever, just end your concept there, tighten it up. That's what I don't like about this card is they added all those extra words.
I don't hate that because I like killing cultists with this. That's kind of neat.
That is nice.
In general, I love flexibility in my cards, and the ability to fight and then flip all book of lore is actually kind of great. Like that is a great use of tempo, but it's just confusing. Like I think the only way this could do a free triggered ability where it's like kind of relevant might be if you're true magicking somehow. But even then, I pride myself on knowing a lot of Arkham rules, and I pride myself on being generally pretty good with most cards. I've given up on True Magic. True Magic was the card that made me give up on trying to fully understand this game forever. So,
nice.
If you can combo this with True Magic in a way where the fact that this says you can resolve a free triggered ability lets you do something that you couldn't otherwise do, kudos to you, but I'm out. But yeah, this is... The thing is that, I think, like you said, this is the kind of card that kind of fits in like a core playstyle, and just like you slot it in a Daisy, and honestly, that's maybe you are right. If the or after the attack ends you get the resolve in action, if that was gone, this card would feel a lot cleaner. But yeah, I don't know. It's a gambit. That's neat. How many gambits do we have in the game now? It's not an insight. This is one of the secret cards secret events that's not an insight, which is a rare treat.
It's like it's got the survivor feel to it, which I kind of like actually.
Yeah. Agreed.
This is a seeker going out of color,
I do like the flexibility of this one simply because it's like, okay, I attack a small thing, like with 1 health. I'm going to kill it, which is great. And then I'm going to get to trigger my old book of lore, say. Or if I'm fighting the big ugly thing that I really can't deal with, I take the auto evade instead. I'm going to give this one a 0. I might even go to +1 on this one if it wasn't tomes only, but because it's tomes only, I don't know, maybe Norman can make use of this. I think he has a tome, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's true.
But I mean, Daisy is obviously the one who pops out for this one. So
I'm actually going to join you on Zero Hill because this is a card that reminds me of what I wanted Seekers to be, where it's like there is a weakness, and that weakness is monsters, but every once in a while they can invoke a like dramatic moment to just barely survive, survive against dealing with a monster rather than just devouring it. I wish Seeker had a lot more cards like this, which were like I do this special thing, and it's very secret because I got my tome and I hit something and I just evade it. It's not to like I don't murder it, I just evade it. Yeah, I'm gonna join you on Zero Hill because the art's great, and I wish this tells me of the new Seeker. If the new Seeker has more of these, then I'm super happy.
Well, I'm not necessarily convinced that there's going to be a new Seeker going forward. I definitely agree that Seeker has a different feel in this box. Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, I don't think that all the old Seeker cards are bad. There are some good ones, but yeah, I don't like this art, but I'm still going to join you in Zero, mostly because I think automatic evades are generally undervalued. I think those are that's just a good effect that if you have it on a couple of cards in your deck, you're going to do a little bit better. It's kind of funny. I'm currently playing a lot of Earthborn Rangers, and it's making me appreciate Tesla's effects a lot more because in that game, enemies or rather beings as they're called in that game only trigger when you perform a test. So if you have any kind of equipment that lets you do anything testlessly, that is incredibly good. And I think in Arkham it's kind of more of the same, honestly. If you can ever get a powerful effect without having to perform a test, that's always good. And this is a test, but it's not it's combining two things into one. And I just think that there's so many panic moments where being able to automatically evade an enemy goes, no, I don't have to deal with you right now. I have a little bit more time to find my options. Yeah, Zero feels perfectly great for this card.
Nice. Yeah, and it actually might persuade me to take a closer look at playing tomes outside of Daisy, because I tend to look at other stuff for my hand slots besides tomes. So maybe other investigators will be like, hey, I'm playing, I don't know, I'm just going to say Rex. Maybe there's a tome that goes well with Rex, and then if I'm looking for enemy management options, suddenly this is open to me, and I kind of like that.
Oh, there are absolutely a bunch of cool Seeker tomes. I think it was around Dream Eaters where they realized that they should actually start printing more tomes, because even though Daisy with Old Book of Lore was the correct choice, it was still a cool trait that they should give more cards to. But yeah, there was a ton of cool tomes. I actually did a parallel Daisy gotta collect them all with Geared Up. I believe that when they tabooed Geared Up, they said the people who know, they know who they are, and I was like, yeah, I know that I'm the person who's responsible for getting this card tabooed. When I put 7 or 8 tomes into play turn 1, and we went from there. But that was actually the funny thing. That wasn't even a broken deck in that sense, because a lot of those tomes were like support oriented or just doing fun stuff. And I think once you head into that lane, then you actually find that the new era of Seeker isn't actually all that new. It's been there all along. It's just been overshadowed by a lot of the overpowered cards in the past. True. And if you there are a lot of cool tomes where if you give them a chance, they will do fun stuff. So yeah, agreed. Take another look at tomes.
Tell you what, this is a card where you got me thinking about new Seekers and stuff. If this is a card where if I built a starter, like an introductory deck for somebody, and I gave them Daisy, I would put this in it. Because it feels right and flavorful. Yeah. And you look at it and you be like, I know what this is for. And those are good cards for new players, where you look at it and you're like, I see what this does.
That's going to do it for part 3 of our look at the Seeker cards in the Feast for Hemlock Vale Investigator expansion. Let us know in the comments down below what you think. Have you thrown the book at anything notable? Let us know. Well, that was a refreshing change after the Myconid nonsense. Some decent cards in this batch that are both flavorful and interesting, and a little bit more nuanced than just I cancel it, or I kill it, or I heal it. Any final thoughts?
I like this new Seeker. I'm just going to keep saying that. Yeah.
You're just going to will it into existence by just continuing to say it. Yeah, I think Kate has been a very fun experiment for me, and a lot of the cards in this box, cards we've seen so far, kind of invite me to experiment, even if I'm a little skeptical how they perform, like the one that lets you investigate all the different locations. I already forgot the name. It's still a card that I wanted to try to see if my initial feelings on it were correct. And I think that's a good place for these cards to be. Like, it definitely didn't feel stale, and that's a good thing to say about a game that's, coming up to a decade now, I think.